back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal. I'm your host. We talk about shark attacks from the 1900s to present, mostly large sharks, and we're going to get started right away. We're going to go over to Cane Bay, St. Croix, Virgin Islands. It's Saturday, October 14th, 1972. A couple of divers, actually 3 divers, but we'll get to that. A couple of divers, one of them's name is Rod Temple. His dive partner and dive leader is Brett Gillum. And there was another diver down there, but he abandoned the dive right away having an equipment problem. So there was only 2 of them down there, and they were thinking about aborting, but they didn't. So they keep their swim going, and they're going along a track that's leading up to a ledge that goes to deeper water. And over the ledge comes 2 oceanic white tips. These are large sharks. He said one was 12 feet and the other one was a little larger than that. So probably 12 and 13 foot oceanic white tips, 2 of them. And they come and they swim and they separate the 2 of them. Now, visibility, they're about 200 feet deep at the time, and visibility is not very far. So they had to separate from each other. They couldn't see each other. And they both went deeper in the water to avoid the sharks. Now, they both get to the bottom, and now Rodney is right behind Brett. And Brett is like going along the bottom of the floor, and he runs into a little wall right by the drop-off, and he huddles against the wall, turns to tell Rodney to come up against the wall, and he can't see him. Now he's hearing some whining and wheezing and things down below him, down in the drop-off. So he figures that that's Rodney, and he swims to Rodney and grabs on him. Rodney's shouting and swinging, and he says when he grabs his body, he could feel shocks to his body, like something was grabbing him and pulling on him. So he knew that they were being pulled deeper by the shark. By the time he got to Rodney, he says he was about 230 feet, 240 feet deep. By the time they were done, they were past 300 feet deep. The sharks had taken him that far deep. So he gets a hold of Rodney, and they're both fighting off this shark now. They're both beating on the shark, and the shark is just taking bites, big bites. He says he can see flaps of skin that hang over from what he's doing to Rodney's legs. And then the second shark comes in and hits him. The second hit almost rips Rodney right out of his arms, takes another big bite out of him. Rodney now is getting very weak. There's a crevice that Brett's trying to stick Rodney into the crevice. Rodney's trying to tell him, don't even worry about it now, because it's pretty much too late. And then the shark came back and hit him again, and that was it. He was just limp in his arms. Brett was completely out of air by this time, so he just had to let him go. The sharks pretty much took him away from him anyway. One of the last things he says that he saw was Brett's body drifting. One of his legs drifting. One of the sharks come up and consume the leg, and then go, and both sharks were just taking turns, taking bites out of the body. So he shot up to the surface as fast as he could. He had no time to do the decompression, and he ended up in the hospital with decompression sickness, severe decompression sickness. So that's got to be one of the biggest nightmares there are. That's Rod Temple. That's our first story, and we're going to continue on. Okay, now we're going to go over to the coast of California off Russian Gulch Beach. Saturday, September 8th, 1990. Rodney Orr is out doing some abalone diving. He has been out diving for abalone for about an hour. He got 4 of them and took them back up to his dive board. Then he decided he was going to go and do some spear fishing. So he grabs his spear and he starts heading out. He gets about maybe 15 feet away from his dive board. He's swimming face down, and all of a sudden he says he had this explosion of water around his head. His head and his shoulders are lifted up out of the water, and he's going for a ride on top of the water. Takes a second for his head to clear, and the first thing he sees is a huge triangular tooth blocking his view from his right eye. He can see that he's headed towards his board though. Shark takes him and smacks them both right off the dive board and keeps going for about 40 to 50 feet with Rodney beating on him the whole time. He finally lets him go and just slowly swims away. Rodney swims himself back to his dive board, clips loose the anchor line and flips the board over because it got flipped over, and heads back to the beach. 20 minutes to get back to the beach, but he survives. He gets himself help. They suture him up. He had wounds to his head, to his back, to his chest, and to his shoulder. But he survived that attack. It was definitely just testing out what it was, and decided to let him go. And probably seems like an hour, but it probably takes about 5-10 seconds for something like that to happen, and you end up in the hospital if you're lucky. So yeah, there's our first test bite so far for the shows, and we're going to get moving on to our final story. Okay, we're going to round this out. We're going to go over to Queensland, Australia, to Lambert's Beach on Thursday, December 28, 1961. Margaret Hobbs, 18 years old, is at the beach with her fiance, Hans Steffens. They're enjoying the water, busy beach. They're standing in less than 3 feet of water, and suddenly Hans feels a pain in his hand. And he said before he could even figure out what it was, it pulled him down into the water. So the shark was trying to get him into deeper water, obviously, and he was able to rip his hand out of the shark's mouth. Well, the shark wasn't done. It lunged over at Margaret and took her under the water, and right away Hans is on top of him, on top of the shark, beating on it. Now another beachgoer comes out, and now 2 men are beating on the shark, and they get it to let go. They get her up to the beach, and the shark slowly swims off, but doesn't leave the area. It's just swimming around. She ends up having her right arm bit off just below the shoulder, her left arm bit off just below the elbow, and a big chunk taken out of one of her thighs. So she doesn't die right away. She goes to the hospital. She had some kind of a complication with her blood type. It was rare. So a complication of shock and blood issues ended up having her lose her life 2 days after the attack. Hans had to have his hand surgically amputated just above the wrist. So the shark got a wrist, two arms, and a big chunk of a thigh on there. And so we're going to put that one down as a predation. The sharks were in the area. There was many sharks in the area on this one, and they went around trying to catch those sharks that ended up attacking them. They caught 10 sharks and didn't find any human remains in any of them, and 3 of the sharks they caught were wounded. They were bit by other sharks, so they weren't able to find the right shark. They were saying 10-foot great white. I'm doubting it's a great white. This sounds just like what a bull shark would do. Bull sharks are famous for dragging you under the water. A great white has no problem. Usually when they hit you near the top of the water, they lift you out of the water. Maybe they know that it's easier to bite down through air than water. I don't know why that is, but I'm paying attention to how many times they lift the people out of the water. They do it quite often whenever they're near the top. So that'll go down as that, and we got 2 more predations, and we got 1 test attack. Let me know what you think of the stories. If there's an attack you want me to go over, let me know in the comments. I'd be glad to do so. If you like what you see, click like. If you want some notifications of the next shows coming up, hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and I shall see you next time. But remember, when you're going in that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.